one pack, green, over. That's 716, roger, over.
16, 15 light 2, 1 Victor, 2 pack, Recon 1, over.
All right, and here we are. Let's see, how many people do we have on? We've got triple digits right now.
Very nice.
So, ladies and gentlemen, how is your week going? I hope it's going well. Welcome to a live stream, and today we have a special guest, Calvin from Firepower United. Yes, the nerd, the nerddom commences. But I think one of the cool things, let's see, let's just check the chat real quick to see what people have been buzzing about. M26. Oh, Brad was here earlier, but he couldn't stay. You see anything?
There's so many comments.
Let's look through. Well, I can go ahead and pop, of course, as any live stream we push, we always have a slide deck, because what kind of savage are we without some sort of a PowerPoint assisted lecture, right? And today we're going to talk about none other than the Collector and Marksman, sort of one of the more I wouldn't say it's rare, but it's rarer than people who are purely gun nerds or purely performance shooters, as far as I see anyways. And of our friends, Calvin is one of my friends that actually fits right there in the Collector and Marksman type of shooter. Whereas you see I'm using me on the gun nerd side and Josh on the performance shooter side. This channel very much has a set of co-hosts that are very opposite of each other's shooting and firearms tastes. Not that Josh doesn't think that collector guns are cool. He just not to the same degree that Calvin and I do. Let's see. So, Calvin, as we start, any forewords on this? Any thoughts? I know you and I, the audience doesn't know, Calvin and I talk about this stuff all the time. And this is actually one of the topics that we've been talking offline all the time as well. You have any forewords on this?
I mean, just watching the intro video of all the guns that you've posted over the years, I'm like, hey, I have that. I have that. And we talk about our collection. There's probably a good 80% overlap.
So that's a funny. So for those for those, yes, this is a moment. Well, now we have AI, so you can't be entirely sure. But this is proof that Calvin and I are, in fact, two different people.
Yes. And you have my guns.
So the funny thing, why I brought Calvin on specifically to talk about the this topic is because of all the people out there, Calvin probably is one of the only influencers or content creators out there who could talk to both Josh and I and get really deep into these conversations, whether it's about gun nerddom or performance shooting, especially with pistols on your specialty. Although you're working on getting into rifles, you're shooting the World Shoot next year, right?
That's not a guarantee. I am working on that. There's a qualifying process that I'm trying to make the U.S. team, so that'd be really interesting.
Yeah. Okay. So, needless to say, Calvin has an impressive collection. Funny thing is, Calvin and I's so yeah, you guys ever been around crackheads that buy crack for the rest of the crack house? Whoever, you know who you are when I'm talking about this this allegory. Calvin and I, we will find cool things about guns and we will send them to each other, whether they're photos, articles, videos. So it's like a crack den with these two little crackheads who look at super historical guns, and we send them to each other. And usually they're freaking expensive. So I don't know if you got into the HK93 stuff or I got into the HK93 stuff first. But we started
You got
doing
yours
that.
first.
Well, you got into the HK91 first with your
Yes.
91, and then I got a 91, then I got a 93, and you needed a 93.
Pressured
And
me
then
to
you
buy
were
my
into
93.
P210s. And how many do you have? Like 4 of them?
I have 4 of them, which is like
Yeah, and then you got me into getting 2 of those things. So this is a very unhealthy relationship between Calvin and I.
yeah.
And this is what's generating this type of content. And of course, Collector and Marksman is the series that we've started publishing on last year. Now, I haven't been very good at following on some other follow-on videos, but more shall come on the Collector and Marksman series. But I thought this would be a good opportunity to talk about what exactly do we mean by a collector and marksman, right? So, and why are we doing this video as a live stream today? And I must confess to you guys, one of the core reasons we pulled this forward is because YouTube took down our video. Thank you, YouTube, thinking that we were selling things. And rest assured, YouTube content reviewer, nothing is being sold here. And most of the things that we shall be discussing have been out of production, unless you can time travel back into the era of the Third Reich and get the Wehrmacht to sponsor this channel, which let's just leave that conversation right there. I don't think we're going to take a Wehrmacht sponsorship to the channel.
Might not look good.
It's probably not a great probably not a great vibe for the audience. But we're talking about collector and marksman, right? So a lot of times when we look out there, we've got 2 spectrums of shooters, and this is a very generalized term. And we're going to talk about a lot of other gun tubers in this video and people that we follow. Yes, there are a lot of collector researchers out there. There are a lot of performance shooters out there. One of the things that we are not specifically saying is there are a lot of good collector researchers out there or good performance shooters out there, right? Specifically, we're talking about the good ones that we follow. Clearly, there are some very terrible ones. And I would love to see what you guys think are good and terrible in the chat. So keep them coming. Calvin and I had a conversation on this. We were talking about should we out some of these guys that we talk about? I don't know yet.
I like all gun tubers equally.
Well, you like them equally, and you dog on them equally as well. You are a very, very balanced poop talker. So we're talking about this spectrum, and yes, we're talking about the spectrum of gun people. We are very much all on the spectrum of either a collector researcher or a performance shooter, and then somewhere in the middle of this, you have this group of people who shoot and collect at the same time, but you also it also varies quite a bit within the spectrum, even inside. So you have some collector shooters that shoot more than some others, and you have some performance shooters who just straight up do not care about any collectability of things. So there's a lot of gray zones within this conversation, and then there's some straight up outliers. We have a category we'll present that's a straight up outlier on these on this categorization. But if we were to try to kind of build a profile, is that it? Building a profile around people who are collectors and researchers. A lot of times we're looking at very value and provenance driven people. Typically, they have a lower range frequency. Again, not all of them. A lot of times, collectors and researchers are going to be focused on preservation, the academic side of things. Again, some are better, some are worse. I think, Calvin, you and I have discussed, I shall not name some of these, but in the AR-15 world, there is a particular influencer that generates a lot of misinformation, but seems like a very authentic researcher. Sometimes some of these guys may not be very good, even though they're in that segment.
Or
and
like
then
falsifying results.
yes, falsifying results, and some of them are straight up just writing history for us to consume. Unfortunately, this takes time for us to discover, so we don't work with these people anymore. Deactivated firearms are an interesting thing. I think this is one that we've seen more common in Europe and places that are legally compromised. Places, I would say, like Hong Kong, where I come from, you can't even get deactivated firearms because those are just straight up illegal. I know a lot of our friends in Australia right now who are shooters are actually facing some of these issues. So, F in the chat for the guys who are overseas. However, because collecting and researching doesn't necessarily always require range time, it's a little easier to get into this as a as someone who lives in a legally compromised location. You have any thoughts on any of these topics? Any points?
I mean, going to like the deactivated firearms. I mean, I've seen sale ads of stuff in Europe that we just don't have access to at all. For example, the Mark II Sten S, the internally suppressed one. Like, you can't find originals of them at all, and there's an ample number of them in the UK that are deactivated. So just to be able to get your hands on one to see what it's like, in different markets, they probably have access to stuff that we just can't get.
Yeah, so Switzerland's a really interesting place, right? I mean, we've got quite a few mutual friends out in Switzerland who have really impressive collections, but they simply don't get to shoot like we do. It's a very regulated 300-meter type of shooting environment, or you have to be in a very closely monitored shooting range in order to pull the trigger. And so it may not be, or sometimes the knowledge base is just different because they're used to the 300-meter type of shooting competitions out in Switzerland, and that drives the entire culture. But places like Switzerland, places like other places in Europe, like I've got a friend in Luxembourg, huge, impressive collection that he has, but he can't shoot it because it's all under a collector's license. And with a collector's license, you can collect, but you can't shoot those examples.
I believe that's like that in Slovenia with full autos. You can buy all the full autos you want under a collector's license. However, you can't shoot them unless it's for research purposes. And they have a very narrow definition of what that is, like for research or media. So you have to have like a professional film crew out there with you to shoot them.
Yeah. And this is the interesting thing is, here in the States, rebuilding firearms from parts kits, that is not anything that makes sense in a world that has no legal ramifications. You would never want to import parts kits to rebuild in a separate location because then you lose a lot of the dimensions if you build it incorrectly. I've said it a couple times that a lot of times this has come up with a new industry in America that I would say, as far as a gun fabricating world, seems to be like the what's the place the Taliban used to make guns in Pakistan? Yeah, it's basically the fabrication world in America, the gun fabrication world and facsimile gun manufacturing world seems to be a Khyber Pass type business with very skilled artisans cranking out very low numbers of these firearms. And so, if it's a good artisan, it will work. The only exception is just America is fueled by either methamphetamine, cocaine, or gun bunnies. But the nature of the industry is very similar. And over in Europe, in a lot of places, you could get your hands on these very legitimate, real examples that were actual relics. Whereas over here, a lot of times people are more accepting to facsimile rifles that are not collector's pieces. They're very much modern replicas. So like H&R stuff right now, those are all replicas. There's no collector value, especially if it's current production.
And in the States, you even have now there's collector's values for parts kits. Because if you have one that's rare or all original parts, that's because it's the best we can get. It's still a collector's item. Look at those AK-12 kits that sold at Atlantic recently.
I hear meth is the key to folding metal like paper as well.
Oh, God.
Okay, so who are some of the collector researchers that Calvin and I follow? Chat, are you ready for this? All right, of course. I mean, I think probably 3 out of the 4 of these people could have guessed we would have put down there because we have personal relationships with them. Who do you want to start with?
Let's just start from the top left and work our way around.
Othais.
Yeah.
CN Arsenal. I think this is one that we sort of hesitated a little bit to put on because they do some practical shooting. Well, practical shooting. They do demonstrations on the range. But a lot of times, and I know they have a constriction on the range that they shoot at, restrictions on the range that they shoot at. So, it's not fair to say they're not shooting at a facility like Josh and I, where we shoot, or where you go to finish brutality to push these things. But some of the best long form content on collectible rifles with agonizingly deep research has been done by Othais at CN Arsenal. That is actually one of my staples whenever I'm reloading. It still is. And they changed the format. I'm all for it. Absolutely love it.
It's more like a classroom format now.
Yeah,
really cool.
And it's fantastic. I mean, I know his excuse was that he wanted to be able to explain what he's doing a little better to YouTube reviewers, but aesthetically, it is on point. Mishiko, to the right. I feel like, okay, so for the record, Mish William, he is blind, not just legally blind. Like he could detect some light, but he cannot see. I get a feeling that if Mish could see, he would really, really enjoy shooting, even so much more. But he can't see, so that kind of restricts him on the shooting side.
And what can you do?
I mean, okay, so Mishiko is, a lot of people associate him with just AK stuff, but really, if you talk to him, he's a big time military surplus and military style rifle collector. He used to, I think he has an academic background on in history. I know he taught. I don't know at what level. But so he's a historian by his own right. And so when you take military surplus collection stuff and you merge it with his love of history, this is the core for collector researcher. But I think one interesting thing that I learned when I was talking to him more, Mish, because he's blind, he's able to perceive a lot of the firearms machining quality and how it feels, and even how it smells. Like his other senses. I mean, it's the trope of the blind guy has like a heightened sense of everything else outside of the vision, right? It's true for him, and he's able to detect some of those things. And in the past, he's actually been able to tell me some of these like things that he's felt a difference in machining, or he's felt a difference in performance, not based off of the accuracy, but how the rifle is perceived as he pulls the trigger. To me, that is fascinating. How someone who lost his sight is able to actually perceive more in a different way than what we could.
What I find really interesting about Misha Ko is he does a really good job being able to track how a lot of firearms come into the United States, and like they're so from not just the firearm itself, but how it came to the U.S. and how they were traded amongst like the importers and how they got them, and all the stories behind that came along with the importing process. I find that very fascinating.
Yes, he's also been in the trade for a long time, so Mish still remembers a lot of the stuff that happened in like the late 90s, early 2000s, and then the backstory on the business side of what happened that gave us certain developments in the firearms. And frankly, that is fascinating from the logistical side. And a lot of people just glaze over that. Jonathan, I don't think we really need to even expand too much more, but he's the final boss of Firearm Researcher.
He has a cheat code, though.
Well, yeah, but he had to work to be
That's true.
final boss in UK for the researcher side.
I mean, the
And
stuff he has access to is insane.
You've been there.
I've been there.
I still want to go see them.
You will, like, for people like us, where we are like basically, eating, breathing guns all day long. I went there and didn't know what the majority of the guns were. That's how obscure some of these things. And there are really cool prototypes, a lot of one-offs or a lot of series of prototypes. Like I saw so many different Bren variations, like prototypes that I didn't know existed. I mean, I couldn't, like, it was just too much to take in. That's how much I need to go back to actually. There's just so much.
So the sad thing is, when people speak poorly about the British, there are a lot of people who are sympathetic, who are interested in these things that we are interested in. But at large, that's where they live, that's where they grew up. It's difficult to ask someone to leave. But for someone to have grown up in the UK, and again, I grew up in Hong Kong, and Hong Kong was exceedingly restrictive on firearms. For someone who grew up in that environment and is able to have this depth of knowledge on firearms and be put in a position to curate and preserve some of the examples that you've seen out there, I mean, that's invaluable. And that is extremely difficult to come by. It's extremely difficult to find someone of that caliber in a position like that and have him stay and curate a large example like that. In many ways, the British government has a tendency of just destroying everything. I mean, right now, they're torching SA-80s. The entire crop, almost the entire crop of L96s are residing at the depths of the North Sea, cut into little small pieces. So, thank goodness we have people like that, like Jonathan, who's able to identify very unique examples and work with the government to retain them rather than just destroy them. Otherwise, it would just be lost, because it's very difficult for just private collectors to go out and do a lot of purchasing. I mean, it's difficult. I mean, it's money's involved, legalities involved. And then it's one thing for a bolt action. It's another thing for anything like an SA-80. It's just right now it's next to impossible. So shout out to Murdoch & Co., by the way. Recently made some splashes out in SHOT Show with their SA-80 revival program. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of the possibilities of learning about these things. Again, talking about kit building, right? It's one thing having people just welding or just folding paper sheet metal together versus another company that would go through the depths of combing through blueprints and trying to actually figure out the manufacturing method and tolerances and put that and rebuild that. And in this type of manufacturing environment, I don't think if people are really truly understand. Like Jonathan has a video you showed me of the SLR and the manufacturing process of the SLR. SLR meaning L1A1, the British FNFAL. People have no idea how extensive arms manufacturing facilities, how big they were and how extensive they were back in, I'd say up until the 90s. And then recently, as of the 2000s, I mean, some people out there could say, globalism killed all of it. I think a lot of people would be alarmed to learn how many Indian and Chinese manufactured components are in their precious AR-15s out there. But back in the day, when one factory made all of these things, that whole process itself is also very difficult to document and preserve. And it comes to guys like Jonathan, guys like Murdoch and Co. to preserve these types of things. So, but on that note, though, going from the West, well, Jason's in the West. I think he's in California. I don't know Jason personally, but I've followed his content quite a bit. And I've got to say, he's some type of professor, right?
That's what I understand. He's a professor at some school in Northern California.
So at first, when his channel popped up on my feed a long time ago. I don't remember when. I was like, what's this dude wearing this like 1950s era CCP soldier's outfit? And he started talking about the SKS Type 56. But the one that really caught my attention, and like I was looking at doing a video on the Chinese Black Star pistol.
Oh yeah.
The Type 54, the TT-33. And I saw that Jason had popped a Black Star pistol video up. And I was thinking, all right, how good is this guy? Because I grew up during this era. I knew these places that he's talking about. And so I went in and I watched the entire thing. Dude knows his stuff. And on top of that, he's a good storyteller. And so, I mean, hats off to that. It's doing research in a different language is extremely difficult. But being able
to do it, but he speaks Mandarin.
Yeah, but a lot of the stuff that he was trying to reference to was Cantonese stuff.
Oh, that's right.
So that's, so if, Mandarin is not an easy language. But Mandarin speakers have trouble learning Cantonese because we have 9 tones versus the 4 tones. It is a language that is more closely associated to the ancient Chinese language. So it's difficult for regular Chinese people to learn Cantonese unless you're a native speaker. And you get an accent too.
I could learn Cantonese.
Yeah, but actually Vietnamese and Cantonese is very similar.
There's a lot of shared words. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. So Jason, I've watched quite a few of his videos and I'm happily following his channel. It's just one of those, I don't know, like I think as of the last 2 years, maybe people have been a little bit more interested in falling back towards the more authentic, like old school YouTube style videos, getting people who could actually speak to the camera, who are authentically interested in things. And I think Jason really embodies this to a very niche, to his niche segment of firearms. I think it's really interesting how he mixes history and the actual firearm in there. Have you seen him shoot any of these things though?
No, he's mentioned that at where he lives, it's not that easy to get to the range, and he doesn't have access to a lot of these firearms, obviously in California.
So that really embodies the collector researcher type of personality trait, right? I think is he in San Francisco? He's in SoCal.
NorCal, somewhere in NorCal. I don't know exactly where.
Okay. So that's going to be difficult. That's also going to be a difficult one for him. Again, there may be a legal reason why they can't get access to these things.
And on top of that, like not only because he lives in California, but because he's into Chinese firearms, the availability of Chinese firearms in the U.S. is like non-existent outside of SKSs and AKs. And
I mean, they messed that one up trying to sell RPGs to the Triad.
I mean, Canada for the longest time had more access to Chinese firearms than we do.
Once again, F in the chats, ladies and gentlemen, to the maple syrup America up north. That one I feel very, very sadly for, because they also lost. They lost their SIGs. They lost their VZ series.
Oof.
What else did they lose?
Their Chilean SIGs.
Yeah, the 540 series.
Yeah.
I
think ARs too, right? Like just regular ARs.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
This is one of the first things.
Yeah.
I mean, they were already sad because they were already like sadly pinning their magazines to 5 rounds.
I think the SKS is like the last cool gun they can have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in a world where there's not a lot of firearms, the SKS is a respectable firearm.
It's decent.
Yeah. It's reliable. But anyways, we shall not get sidetracked on this because we have more that we need to talk about. And a part of this is the offshoots that we're talking about, almost seeming like the collector researchers. We have a segment of YouTubers and gun tubers and influencers that are testers. These are specifically people who do product testing. It's kind of like food testing, I would say, almost. And I'm not saying they don't care about the value, but their channels are very data driven, or rather, what they do is very data driven, and it doesn't focus on it doesn't really focus on some of the value propositions that what people have on looking at what's the value. Let's see. Oh, YouTube kicked one of our lives.
Yeah, they shut down the live, Henry.
Let me see.
It says this video has been removed for violating YouTube's community guidelines.
That's great. Is it on the main channel?
That's what it looks like. Yeah, but I try to because it stopped the comments, and then I refreshed, and it showed that message on the video.
That's great. All right, so why don't we try to kill this, and we could restart it elsewhere?
Okay, so same StreamYard or different?
Yeah. I'll shoot it over to you.
Okay.
Sorry guys. We've got to restart this. We'll just send you guys back over to the other side shortly.